Hey, this is Nikki G, and welcome to Better Commander. Today we're talking about Jund Aristocrats flying over the streets of New Capenna with Ziatora, the Incinerator. Before we get started, I wanted to ask you guys to like and subscribe to my videos because, that makes me happy. It makes me happy to have people out there who are clicking on these things and enjoying them and seeing cards that they've never seen before. And I want to let you know I look exactly like the guy in this picture. Let me just preface this whole dang video by saying that I have a Korvold deck, okay? Confession time. I do. It's Aristocrats. It has a Phyrexian altar in it. It's got a Yawgmoth in it. I got that Phyrexian altar when Ultimate Masters came out, and I think I bought it for about $12. Korvold came in a Brawl pre-constructed deck. Brawl was Wizards of the Coast's attempt to monetize the very air that we breathe. It was a 60-card singleton format that only allowed standard legal cards and very similar to Commander. As far as I'm aware, not one game of Brawl was ever played by anyone not paid to play the game. But as Jeff Goldblum would say, but, it had some very powerful commanders created for the pre-constructed decks that were promptly co-opted into Commander and broken in half. One of those fateful cards was Korvold, Faker's King. It's 2 black, red, and green for a legendary creature. It's a Dragon Noble 4/4 with flying. Whenever Korvold, Faker's King enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. This card is pushed in a dozen different ways. It's an engine, it's a payoff, it's an evasive win condition, all rolled into one card. Sounds great, I'll build a deck around it, right? And the deck works great, but it's intensely boring to play. Every turn after you have 5 mana is you sacrificing, drawing cards, playing more cards, sacrificing, reanimating, until basically you have a win condition set up and Korvold is a 45/45 flying stupid monster. I played this deck a few times, but decided to take it apart ages ago. Prossh is a great replacement and is a great Jund Aristocrats commander, so Prossh Skyrider of Care is 3 black, red, and a green for a legendary creature, Dragon 5/5, also has flying. When you cast this spell, create X01 Kobold creature tokens named Kobolds of Care Keep, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast it. It's also a sacrifice outlet. Sacrifice another creature, Prossh Skyrider of Care gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. The problem with Prossh is its well-deserved reputation as a food chain combo commander. People see Prossh as the head of your deck and they get scared, probably with good reason. So with Streets of New Capenna, we have Ziatora the Incinerator. So this is 3 black, red, and a green for a legendary creature. It's a demon dragon, 6/6, has flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Ziatora deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. Now this is something I can get behind. It's powerful, has many of the same synergies, but is arguably less powerful for Jund Aristocrats. Ziatora also has this Fling ability that you can do at the end step, and if you play it right, that can be a win condition on its own. So what do we need for an Aristocrats deck to function? We need 3 things, and that's why it's kind of rewarding to play Aristocrats. It's definitely not an easy victory. First thing we need is fodder. We need creatures and or spells that put bodies on the field. We need sacrifice outlets, preferably instant and free or mana positive, and we need payoffs, cards that drain when creatures die. Classic Jund card, Sprouting Thrinax, is 4 bodies for 3 mana, so this is an excellent target for sacrifice and or reanimation. There are several spells like Goblin Instigator that are 2 for 2, Scryfall Goblins with the word token in their text, and you'll find quite a few. Sling Gang Lieutenant is both a token producer and a goblin sacrifice outlet. 3 and a black for a creature, goblin, it's a 1/1. When Sling Gang Lieutenant enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Sacrifice a goblin, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Also from Throne of Eldraine, Chittering Witch, 3 and a black for a creature, human warlock, it's 2/2. When Chittering Witch enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 black rat creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. 1 and a black, sacrifice a creature, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Endrick Sar, Master Breeder and Notorious Creep, is 4 and a black for a legendary creature. He's a human wizard, 2/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create X 1/1 black Thrall creature tokens, where X is that spell's mana value. When you control 7 or more Thralls, sacrifice Endrick Sar, Master Breeder. This guy turns Avenger of Zendikar, which is another great token producer, into 12 to 14 tokens. Then he sacrifices himself so you can benefit from that trigger as well. Prossh goes in the deck. I already read this once. I'm not going to read it again. But if you cast him for his 6 mana cost, he comes along with his 6 little buddies. He's also a good sacrifice target for Ziatora because he can get really big. You also might want to include expendable creatures that enter the battlefield and can then be sacrificed for value. Cards like Springbloom Druid, Solemn Simulacrum, Farhaven Elf. Early game, these Eldrazi spawn can be used to power out your bigger spells, or late game as sacrifice fodder. Nest Invader, Kozilek's Predator, these all fit the bill nicely. What about Chatterfang, Squirrel General? Chatterfang come in real handy, putting out a ton of bodies. Chatterfang Squirrel General is a 3/3 for 2 and a green. Legendary creature Squirrel Warrior, he's a 3/3. He has Forest Walk, okay, whatever. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. Black, sacrifice X squirrels, target creature gets plus X minus X until the end of turn. So this can pump one of our creatures to be sacrifice fodder for Ziatora. It can also trigger when Ziatora creates his treasure tokens. This just has great synergy in the deck. So part 2, sacrifice outlets. What are some good sack outlets we can use? There are a couple altars we can throw our creatures on for value. We have Phyrexian Altar, as we mentioned, goes into these crazy loops with any reanimation spells. Phyrexian Altar is 3 generic mana for an artifact. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. This thing is unfortunately about $100 at present. Ashnod's Altar is a little cheaper at $6 or so. Ashnod's Altar is 3 generic mana for an artifact. Sacrifice a creature, add colorless. Carrion Feeder is a classic 1-drop. It's a black mana for a creature. It's a zombie, 1/1. Carrion Feeder can't block. Okay, don't forget that part of it. Sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. Viscera Seer is also 1 black mana for a creature. It's a vampire wizard, 1/1. Sacrifice a creature, scry 1. So in matters of life and death, this guy trusts his gut. So Viscera is another name for guts. You get a visceral feeling or a visceral pain. Viscera, or however people say it, is not a word, so get that nonsense on out of here. It's one of my all-time favorite cards, Yawgmoth Thran Physician, 2 black for a legendary creature. It's a human cleric, 2/4, protection from humans. Alright, pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. This is an awesome sacrifice ability in this deck. It also has black, discard a card, proliferate. So this guy's a house, he can get us cards. I know I'm mentioning cards that are like $1 million, but I literally bought one of these guys for $10 when Modern Horizons came out. You need to strike while the iron's hot when it comes to these cards, man. I've been in this game a while. Don't get me wrong, I've missed a few good cards, but if I see something that can be awesome in Commander, I'm gonna snatch it right up. Speaking of cards that were reprinted and I snatched up, we're going to be running some high power creatures to take advantage of Ziatora's Fling ability. So if we're running out of gas, we can sack one of those creatures to Greater Good to refill our hands and strategically put stuff in our graveyard. So Greater Good is 2 green for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. So pretty much any creature that has power 3 or greater is going to be a net positive card for us. We can use this as card advantage, or we can use it as card selection. So what are our Aristocrats payoffs? How do we win with a deck like this? There's a bunch of cards that can drain our opponents. First one is going to be Zulaport Cutthroat. So this guy is 1 and a black. For a creature, it's a human rogue ally. It's a 1/1. Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Poison Tip Archer is one of the best cards if you're running green in an Aristocrats deck, and black obviously. So Poison Tip Archer is 2 black and a green for a creature. It's an Elf Archer 2/3. Also has Reach and Death Touch. Whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Very simple and effective. Mayhem Devil. This thing's getting a little pricey. It's 1 black and a red for a creature. It's a devil, 3/3. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. This thing's awesome. It's another copy of Blood Artist, and it's whenever a player sacrifices a permanent. So we're going to capitalize over all those treasure tokens that our opponents are making as well. Vindictive Vampire. Here she comes again. 3 and a black for a creature. Vampire, it's a 2/3. Whenever a creature you control dies, Vindictive Vampire deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. There's a number of these fantastic Aristocrats effects. The idea is to set up our tokens, a sacrifice outlet, and a drain payoff. These are the basic components of Aristocrats. It's a strategy that doesn't require combat, it's resilient, and can be pretty hard to deal with. Not the biggest fan of Planeswalkers, but we need to draw cards, and Liliana Dreadhorde General has a static ability. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. It also has a +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So if we can protect this thing, and we're going to have plenty of tokens on the battlefield, hopefully we can get to the -9 where each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. If we can get to that point, we win the game. I definitely wouldn't rely on it, but it's a good card with a lot of synergy with the cards in this deck. So Ziatora's Fling ability should not be ignored. There are very cheap creatures that can be utilized for full power swing, like Daemogoth Titan and Daemogoth Woe Eater. For 4 mana each, these are decent includes. I wish they had evasion, but you can't have it all, I guess. Okay, Clackbridge Troll. It's 3 black for a creature troll. It's an 8/8 with trample and haste. When Clackbridge Troll enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3/0/1 white goat creature tokens. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap Clackbridge Troll, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. So you can tap this guy, your opponents can tap this guy, you draw a card, gain 3 life, okay, whatever. So if Ziatora is on the battlefield at the end step, you can just fling it for 8 damage to whoever made you tap it, if that floats your boat. Greven, Predator Captain, is great in a deck like this. I have a Greven deck that is a little mean, but he can sacrifice a card like the Troll to draw us 8 cards and then get flung by Ziatora. Cast a Victimize and you get them both back for your next turn and keep the engine going. So Greven Predator Captain is 3 black and a red for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Human Warrior, 5/5, has Menace. Greven Predator Captain gets +X/+O, where X is the amount of life you've lost this turn. Whenever Greven attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, you draw cards equal to that creature's power and you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. This is a great card in this deck. I just love this guy in general. I think it's such a flavorful and cool card. I should mention you want a fair amount of recursion because you're sacrificing really good creatures to damage your opponents. Cheap classics like Reanimate are really good here. You might want to think about Necromancy, Animate Dead. Cheap cards that get cards back from your graveyard. Victimize, another one I should mention. Living Death. My opponents always say when I'm playing with my buddies online, they always say, I could sense a Living Death coming pretty soon here. So 3 black for a sorcery. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. So you can sacrifice everything to Carrion Feeder, including Carrion Feeder, and then bring it all back for further shenanigans and more life loss and more Aristocrats. This card goes in a lot of decks. Definitely one of my favorite cards of all time. So kids, listen, I could go on and on, but I'll just link my deck lists instead. I mocked up a quick one for Ziatora, and I really want to take my time with this one because I think I'm going to take down Korvold and build Ziatora. All the good stuff from Korvold goes in that deck. So I'll link Korvold as well. I think over time some stuff from Korvold that isn't in Ziatora will migrate in, or I'll maybe beef up the Aristocrats theme in Ziatora. I'm not really sure. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. I need your thoughts and ideas so I don't go hollow. This is going to be Nikki G from Better Commander signing off.